My job includes tracking and cataloging the various types of demon personas that roam the earth. Fremont Earhart is my name, and I come from a long line of demon catalogers. I am completely overworked and underpaid, and I have received no health, dental, or other benefits since beginning this job. My esteemed cousins, the Montgomery family, would also argue that my job is far less sexy and far less cool than their position as the Crown's premier demon hunters. Of course, I'd like to argue the opposite. Okay, I have cool days every now and then. For instance, consider the other day. I'd been following this thing across the Pacific Northwest, watching as it wreaked havoc from town to town. Consider the climactic fight scene in the Transformer films. There's fire and debris everywhere. Skyscrapers were destroyed, and bodies were found in the street. I'd tracked it down to a small town outside of Paterson, New Jersey, and was listening to the shriek of police scanners as the engorged demon tore through the streets in search of more human meat. I brought my trusty computer and was hard at work in a nearby coffee shop. I'd had a rough day. The night before, I'd celebrated a friend's birthday, and she'd ordered entrees for the table without informing me that the pizza wasn't dairy-free. So the entire morning had been spent with Tums, Advil, and an upset stomach. Demons are clearly not from this plane of existence. Philosophers, historians, and scientists all have different theories about where these specific beings of energy come from, theologians, too, but because they're so far off the mark, I've decided not to include them in this roundup. I've heard it all: alternate dimensions, karmic energy recycled, fallen beasts from overlapping universes. The truth is that no one knows. What we have done is identified them. However, I'm getting ahead of myself. This day, I believe it was a Tuesday, was especially pleasant. I'd tracked that demon down to a defunct paper mill on the outskirts of the main strip. A group of people had taken refuge there, hoping that the thick steel walls would protect them. There were a lot of whining and wailing, as well as calling out ritualistic words I'd heard used in prayers to their sky god. Nobody thought to draw a perimeter or try to barricade the steel doors. Useless. Anyways, the demon saw this as an opportunity for a tasty snack and exhibited the aggressive predator skills I'd seen before. The poison-tipped hook dew claws, the hardened armor plates around the vulnerable underbelly, and the displayed, blood-red fan around its eyeless face, similar to the fan-throated dragon lizard here on Earth. But as it moved in for the kill, I noticed it pause. I was completely taken aback. It's Harg month, and this fucking killing machine doesn't pause. What was the situation? This thing was ready to shred these humans into spaghettios, claws and teeth out. It was now frozen in place, crouched over the weeping, gibbering humans who had backed themselves into a mill corner. The humans had backed themselves into the small space beneath the massive metal stairs that led to all 3 levels of the old, decaying paper mill. The stairs themselves were crumbling, posing a serious safety hazard and a major workplace violation. Rusted swaths of the stairs were red, with corroded metal piling up an inch thick. Rust and iron. Perhaps this had something to do with it? I was crouched near the crime scene, frantically taking notes. I'd been distracted by my upset stomach that morning and had accidentally left my hotspot at home, so I couldn't use my computer all the way out here. Fortunately, I discovered my old black book, blood ink pen, and voice recorder in the backseat of my black Prius, so I was able to use those instead. The Harg month was straining, poison dripping from its claws as it worked furiously to reach the whining meat bags. It was clear that it wanted to get to the humans, but something was preventing it from accomplishing its ultimate goal of creating a slew of little piles of human meat. But what exactly was it? Ah yes. There. Front and center is a human girl. Darker skin tone, brown, curly hair. Her age is estimated to be between 15 and 16 years old, and she is holding a large cross to her chest. Is it silver or iron? Chanting the same prayers as everyone else. Yes, other people are still crying. But this human girl. I took a breather. This human girl hasn't taken her gaze away from the beast. I set it into my tape recorder. Interesting. Very intriguing. It appears that the Harg month is reacting to the prayers. Alternatively, to her. I took notes. She's worth keeping an eye on. I'll return later. After recording the observations and cataloging the phenomena, it was time to clean up the mess and call in the cousins. I took out the suitcase BLU-82 and tuned it to the frequencies that corresponded to the human's heartbeats. After a particularly messy case involving the Romans and a large cult following almost 1,991 years ago, basically, a small group of renegade humans had made exposure of the Lilith demon we were on the verge of almost subduing, resulting in wide-scale exposure. The Crown had then tasked us with developing a weapon that could target only specific individuals, resulting in immediate results with minimal damage. As a result, the BLU-82 was born. Set it to specific frequencies, such as location, heartbeats, a crowd number, or even a mugshot, and the resulting blast would only affect those individuals. In this case, after performing the necessary calculations, I set it off to dispatch these human meat suits. But not before I let go of that particular human girl. I'm not a fan of humans. In fact, I find them vile, impulsive, and downright fleshy, but I admire those who demonstrate tenacity in order to survive. Then I summoned my cousins. They rode in on literal white horses and dispatched the demon in record time. All that was left for me after it was returned to the dimension from which it came was the case paperwork, which I completed in my Brooklyn loft with hot cocoa and my heated blanket. Overall, it was a pleasant day. My job entails tracking and categorizing the 5 major types of Daemonia Animalis. Hardmonth is the largest of the 5 Daemonia Animalis. It is strong, beastly, angry, and nearly impossible to subdue. Its earthly body resembles a large, bloated lizard. The Hardmonth has 10 massive, hooked claws on each of its 4 legs and is usually dark green, black, or a dark blue-black. The hooked claws are tipped with the most lethal poison on the planet, capable of paralyzing in seconds. The Hardmonth will drag its helpless victim back into whatever cave or abandoned mine serves as its lair once it has completely paralyzed it. Unless it's been induced into a killing frenzy, in which case it'll rip the town apart. A large, blood-red fan folds over the Hardmonth's eyeless face. It is usually folded over, unless the Hardmonth is aggressive, in which case it undulates like a flower in the wind. Lilith, one of the smallest of the 5, the Lilith is especially tricky because it can change shape. The human female is one of its preferred forms. The form is usually small and unassuming, but it has a hypnotic spell that draws in large numbers of humans. There, it will almost always use its power to incite mass riots, genocides, purges, and other heinous acts. Liliths have been spotted at major historical events such as Jesus' crucifixion, the Trojan War, the Salem witch trials, Caesar's stabbing, World War II, and so on. When not in its preferred human form, the Lilith is a small, gelatinous, blob-like creature with 2 dark eyes and waving tentacles down its 2 sides. Iron is fatal to the Lilith, and in fact, the increasingly widespread use of iron is one of the reasons why humans will occasionally survive the Lilith, giving rise to many myths and fairy tales about witches and fairies. Undacitus, this monstrous demon prefers to live in bodies of water. Although it's been over a century, the last time an Undacitus was seen was deep in the Mariana Trench. Indeed, the last time this monstrous, enormous lizard shark was spotted, it inspired stories and legends that influenced Godzilla. It looks a lot like a modern shark, but it's bigger, scarier, has more rows of teeth, and is far, far smarter. Because it only appears every 100 to 200 years, little is known about this particular Daemonia Animalis, but fellow catalogers and I believe it emits a specific sound. Similar to a whale's call? Instead of something soft and serene, this sound will cause humans to jump overboard or take the entire ship with them. It doesn't even eat people. It feeds on plankton. We believe it simply enjoys the kill. Montrum, this Daemonia Animalis is mostly found in mountainous areas. Appalachian, Rocky, and Sierra Nevada demons are unusual in that they do not seem to enjoy the thrill of hunting humans. Instead, they eat local fauna such as wild goats and deer. One of their favorite snacks is the grizzly bear. We've become pretty lenient with these demons over the years, and it's only when they happen to cross paths with a human backpacker that they're put back on our radar. Montrum are typically 15 feet tall, weigh close to 700 pounds, have pure white or dark black fur, and stand on two legs. Human sightings, particularly those that manage to flee, have fueled the Yeti and Bigfoot legends. Is there a Bigfoot? If it did, the Montrum most likely ate it. The Montrum have been increasingly coming down from their mountain lairs and snatching people on the outskirts of cities in recent years. Is climate change influencing their usual diet of wild goats' migration patterns? Is it because of the wildfires? We are still unsure. We've had several reports of this happening in Denver, Colorado in the last 5 years. The Crown has moved this to our priority case as of last week. But, yes. Last but not least, I've saved the best for last. The Umbra is what we call it. The night. Even now, 500 years later, I'm still terrified of this one. I've only encountered it once, and I don't remember much about it. Actually, there isn't much to learn about this demon from the books. Fellow catalogers recall encounters with this entity, and the resulting PTSD is too much for them, with high counts of memory loss, mental hospitalization, and even suicide. This is what I know. One has the appearance of a tall, dark, faceless man. 2. It prefers to hide in dark places, such as closets or beneath beds. And 3 more. If it catches you, it likes to strike a deal. Give me something you care about, and I'll let you live. My colleague survived an Umbra encounter. It happened on the same day I saw it. We were fighting a hardmonth in a deserted mall in southern Kentucky. It was large and ugly, and it resisted all attempts to subdue it and return it to its home dimension. We summoned reinforcements, more cousins, and retreated to the loading dock to wait while the hardmonth ripped up an Old Navy and Claire's. This is where things get hazy for me. I recall rushing in and scrambling to close the gate behind us. Because the hardmonth had been following us, we took extra precautions to secure the gate's 2 halves. We left a small gap because we couldn't get the chain tight enough around the broken lock in our haste. I recall how cold the metal felt between my fingers. Strange, given that it was the height of summer in southern Kentucky. The following 3 events occurred. 1. We could hear rustling behind us. My coworker turned to look at me. 2. I noticed him suddenly freeze. Listen, this man does not shiver. He'd been in the game for longer than I'd been alive, a hardened vet and a beast of a man. And that's saying a lot considering I'm nearly 500 years old. But that day, I felt him freeze like a mouse, trapped in the gaze of a hawk. 3. I felt like a child being picked up and shoved through the small gap we had left in the fence. The fence ripped large gouges in my face, neck, and chest, but they were nothing compared to the agony I could hear in my colleagues' screams. Then, I blacked out. I awoke a month later in the intensive care unit of a rural Kentucky hospital. I had no identification on me, and no one had been left to check on me in the chaos that the hardmonth had left behind that day. I found out what had happened to my colleague after I awoke, tore out the peripherally inserted central catheter, and returned home. Of course, he was gone. He was a strong man who refused to let the Umbra take someone he cared about. We don't know much about the Umbra, but we do know what happens when one of us is taken. For the Umbra is unique in that it is the only demon that will transport you back to the dimension from which it came. Nothing good ever happens there. Particularly to your flesh, your soul, and your spirit. His daughter is aware. The Umbra visits her once a year, on the anniversary of her father's death, and shows her exactly what happened to her father. And on that particular day, the Umbra offers her a choice. You're something he enjoys. I'll let him live if you give me you. So far, she has said no, as far as I am aware. I'm not sure which is scarier, the Umbra or someone I thought I loved letting the Umbra take me. But that's all for now on Monster Stories. Meanwhile, I have a stack of case files to finish, a full dishwasher to empty, and piles of laundry from my last trip. My 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom flat requires a thorough cleaning, and my black kitten, Spooky, requires a bath. I'll see how well this goes because he occasionally spits fire. My fellow demon hunters, until next time.